Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the levels of consciousness, which is an amazing tool created by Dr. David Hawkins. And I absolutely love it because the truth is we strive to evolve and grow and expand in every areas of our lives. In fact, we are made to grow, right? But it's often very challenging to grow in those areas that require us to look within and to develop a heightened level of consciousness, of spiritual consciousness. And Dr. David Hawkins created a consciousness scale, which explains this way more in depth and also helps us to better see like where we're at and how we can move to a greater level of consciousness. So the history behind that is he experienced several life-altering events throughout his life, right? And after each event, he noticed a change in his overall state of consciousness. Sometimes it would be a lower frequency ego-based focus, right? Or other times he would have a higher state of love and bliss where he felt constantly connected. And this experience really intrigued him, and it prompted him to want to pursue understanding how and why these different changes occurred and how his discoveries could assist the whole collective, right? How he could give this back and teach other people about it as well. Now, the levels of consciousness is a well-known scale. Other leaders, like highfalutin leaders, well-known leaders in the psychology, spirituality, coaching, counseling, all of the things have now refined and used Dr. Hawkins' scale as a starting point for their own methods. But essentially what Hawkins did is he laid out, and I'll show you the graphic, he laid out an entire spectrum explaining our levels of consciousness. So if you're looking at this, the lower levels of consciousness include shame, guilt or hate, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, and pride. And these levels are the most painful that we experience. And it is the pain that these levels create that actually drive us to that deep desire to understand, to have that deeper understanding and to have that inner growth. And Dr. Hawkins explains and describes these lower levels of consciousness as those levels that are ego dominated, okay? And this is often where we're thriving on survival mode. Really interesting fact that may, it blew me away when I read it, but I don't want to say that I was surprised by it, but it did make me more conscious of what I'm taking in. But essentially, there's a ton of research done that a good amount of music today actually calibrates below the 200 level. Courage is right at 200. And a lot of music today actually calibrates below that, right? And then it leads to behavior associated with lower levels of consciousness. So for example, they've seen a direct correlation between rap and anger, right? So really being cognizant of that. And it's not just music, right? A lot of movies will weaken people who watch them by bringing their energy levels down below that same 200 level of consciousness. Courage is, again, that 200 level, right? And it's where our biggest shift takes place. That's why it's in its own fancy color. This is also known as the state of integrity, and it's where we start to discern the truth from falsehood and essence from ego. So the lower levels are, that ego-based place, and the upper levels are that essence-based place. Those lower levels are really painful, whereas those higher levels actually allow you to expand, allow you to move into that state of essence, allow you to growth, okay? So if you're looking at this scale, one of the biggest mistakes that I see that people make is I see that people, because we live in the space where toxic positivity is normed, right? Where it's like, okay, I feel really, really embarrassed about something. Everyone's like, okay, tomorrow's a new day. The sun will come out after the storm or whatever it may be. And so we never allow ourselves to get in touch with our true emotions. We always try to circumvent them. And here's the reality. We are humans and we are made to feel things. In fact, our emotional scale is a spectrum. And so if we tell ourselves that we are only ever going to feel peace, joy, love, enlightenment, reason, acceptance, all of those things, we're never going to allow ourselves to feel those emotions that we can actually learn from. And what I see far too often is somebody might feel a low emotion like fear, and they move from fear to, they try to jump from fear to reason or fear to enlightenment. And then they wonder why, one, it's not sustainable, and two, why it feels like their shadows keep rearing the ugly heads, because you have not addressed that part of you that needed healing to really be able to create the sustainable next level version of you, okay? So we don't have to jump emotions to be able to create what it is that we want to create. If you look here, you can see, so when you notice anything under fear, so shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, all of those things, all create essentially inaction, right? And then desire, anger, and pride create hyperactivity. So you're operating almost from this place of desperation. Courage is right where we start to notice happiness and productivity. Reason is where peak performance without stress takes place. And then love, joy, peace, and enlightenment allow for alignment and extraordinary outcomes. In his book, Dr. David Hawkins has a book called Power versus Force, which is so dope. But in this book, he talks about the difference between operating from force and operating from power. Force is, again, that desperate energy. And that's why you see people in that hyperactive space, in that space of like procrastinating or not taking any action, right? Versus power is when you're just really aligned, right? You start to create amazing outcomes. You start to be more productive. You start to feel more happy. You start to feel more aligned. And you have that peak performance without that paired stress, right? We don't have to normalize peak performance with stress. And I love this tool so much because I not only use it personally, but I use it with clients, and I find it incredibly like an extremely powerful resource and reference tool to understand where someone is currently on this scale and what can be done to move them up the scale. In his book, Power versus Force, Hawkins actually explains that we are born into a human body. And with that human body, there is another layer, which is that ego layer. But we can move away from that ego layer and move to the higher tiers to that essence layer. And so I love this so much because there's also the law of vibration. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. We talk about the law of attraction all the time. The law of attraction is great, but I get frustrated when people watch the documentary or read a book or whatever, and they think they know everything about it. And it's missing major components. There's 12 laws of the universe, right? And one of them is the law of vibration. And the law of vibration actually states that everything in the universe is in a constant state of movement. And we refer to these movements as vibrations. So in order to manifest anything into your life, you must first match the vibration of what it is that you're looking for. So if you want to manifest more fear, match the vibration of fear. You'll call more of that in. If you want to manifest the vibration of acceptance, match the energy of acceptance and you'll call more of that in, okay? You attract not what you want, you attract who it is that you are. Okay. You are only going to attract to yourself the energy that matches up with the energy you're vibrating at. And so this is why when I learned about this tool, this is why I was so blown away, because I'm like, dude, this is so powerful for so many reasons. So let's talk about essentially, how do you move yourself up the levels of consciousness scale to be able to create and call in the things that you want to be able to call in. All right. So here are some ways to raise your consciousness. The first thing is rest, right? Really taking care of your body, restoring your body. There's another law called the law of rhythms. There's tons of rhythms in our lives, right? There's seasons and weeks and all of the things, but our body also has rhythms too. So if you notice your body calling you to rest, give yourself that permission, because it allows you to restore, rejuvenate, and come back so refreshed and ready to take on your next task. Set intentions, right? So many times we just kind of go through life all willy-nilly, hoping things happen the way we want it to happen, but we haven't really set an intention about what we want to happen. So set an intention. Act consciously, right? I always say it's better to be proactive than reactive. And too many of us are walking around being reactive to the things that are happening in our life instead of being proactive and consciously preparing and planning for the things we want to call in. Awaken. So I would challenge you to become more aware of what's going on inside of you, inside of others, and inside of the world, because the more awakened you are, the more you can shift things that aren't working for you. Live mindfully. That's huge. So start to pay attention to your thoughts and your feelings. Slow down, because here's the thing: when we stay too far in the past, depression starts to surface. When we move too far in the future, anxiety begins to surface. And trying to balance those two is exhausting. So if you stay in the present, it's so freaking powerful. And I'm going to skip down to number 13, because with that, I want to also challenge you to activate your senses. This is a great mindfulness tool that brings you back to reality. So one of the things that I like to do is I do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 activity, but I do it with my senses, which allows me to be here in the moment and get in touch with my senses. So I'll say, what are 5 things that I see around me? What are 4 things that I feel? So maybe I feel my pants, or I feel the chair, or I feel a table, or whatever. What are 3 things that I hear? What are 2 things that I taste? What is 1 thing that I smell? And this allows me to tune in. And the great thing is I can do this wherever I'm at, but it allows me to tune into the right here and right now and be in touch with my reality, and not too far in the future and not too far back in the past. Um, EFT is another great tool. So if you notice yourself vibrating at one of the lower energetic frequencies, so let's say you're vibrating at anger, you could use tapping, which is emotional freedom techniques, as a tool to really tap out that negative anger and to tap in positive suggestions to get you feeling high vibe. And it happens really quick. That is like a go-to tool for me and a non-negotiable in my daily routine. And it really has changed my energetic frequency. Gratitude. Gratitude is one of the highest energetic frequencies you could possibly vibrate at. And I love gratitude so much because it is the law of attraction. What you think about is what you attract. Essentially, we become a magnet for our thoughts. And so if you vibrate at gratitude level and you think about your things that you're grateful for, what are you naturally going to attract? More things to be grateful for. Being in nature, I feel like it's a great grounding practice and tool, which again allows you to be mindful and it brings you home to yourself. And you don't have to be some fancy like nature guru. I am not that person either. I don't camp. I hike sometimes, like if I want to like a family trip. The last time I've been has probably been 4 years. So it's not like a day-to-day thing. But one of the things I like to do is just go on a walk. And I will take my phone, but I won't use it. And this allows me to really, really get in touch with nature. Journaling allows you to really process your thoughts, what's on your mind, and prevents you from having to harbor and hold all of those heavy emotions. Because if you think of a pop bottle, if we shake a pop bottle up and then we try to open it, it's going to naturally explode. Okay, it's the same thing with our emotions. We're harboring all of these emotions, and every time we think of something, it's essentially shaking our body up. Okay, and then eventually we have our own unique versions of explosion: crying fits, fits of anger, resentment, isolation, all of these things. Whereas if you ever shake a pop bottle up, what you should do is you should sit it down and then slowly release the top, letting those bubbles slowly come out. That's what journaling is. Journaling lets you slowly release the bubbles to slowly get what's on your chest and your heart out. Setting intentions. I am like a big advocate for goal setting and setting intentions, because your subconscious mind is much like a robot. And we give our subconscious mind things all the time to move on, right? With our thoughts, we talk about, oh, I'm so stupid. And then you find things to make you feel like even stupider, right? The truth is, set the intentions, set goals, make it plain so that your subconscious mind, much like a robot, can move in that direction. Act consciously. Oh, I got that on there twice, so we don't need to go over that one again. Shadow work. Shadow work is difficult, but that's really where you're healing those shadows, those things that you don't want to confront, those things that you don't want to face. That will naturally help you to be able to move up, because with confronting your shadows, you're also learning and growing what each of those experiences are supposed to teach you. And then as you heal that part of yourself, you can move to that next level version of yourself. Activate your senses, I talked about. And then hypnosis. Hypnosis is one of my favorite tools as well. That's why I certify people in hypnosis and EFT, because those are like amazing tools that I love. And essentially, hypnosis creates a hyper awareness, which leads to an altered state of consciousness. So the more aware you are, the more you actually heal that part of yourself on a subconscious level, not on a conscious surface level, but on a subconscious level. And then you can alter the state of consciousness. Okay. It is so powerful. So here's the thing. I shared this with you because I think it's so impactful. I think it's really cool. And like I said, a lot of world-renowned psychologists, counselors, and coaches use this tool too. I shared this because I want you to start getting your wheels spinning. And I want you to start thinking about like your life. And I want you to know that where you are right here, right now, and I'm saying this from a place of love, is a direct reflection of what you allowed yourself to believe yesterday. So I want you to think about, where are you currently, right? Because of where you are currently, I want you to think about, what are the things in your life that are attracting that? If you're at a constant state of fear, what are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you allowing yourself to believe? What environments are you in? Who are you around? Right? Really thinking about where you are currently. And then I want you to think about what you are committed to change, adjust, alter, fix, however you want to look at it, in order to raise your energetic frequency, in order to raise your level of consciousness. This stuff is life-changing. The number one takeaway that I want you to understand is that your thoughts create the world that you experience. And moving up the consciousness scale is a process of learning how to respond to the events in the world with better thoughts. And I want you to know that you are more than capable of doing that. You have so many tools at your fingertips that you can start to access, that you can start to use, that you can start to leverage. And when you do, you are going to notice a massive transformation that takes place. And you'll notice that you can begin to create the life that you desire and deserve. Have a wonderful day.